So some of the key sources as we discussed includes education, health, on-the-job training, migration and information. So there is a growth in government expenditure on education as the government has realized the value of education. The Right to Education Act 2009, it says that free and compulsory education should be given especially for the kids from 6 to 14 years. Hello everyone, I am Niklavati S, Faculty of Commerce, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. I welcome you all for the sessions on the subject Economics for First PUC. In today's session, we will be discussing about human capital formation in India. In the previous session, we have discussed what is human capital is all about, what are the various sources of human capital, as well as how human capital contribute to economic growth. In today's session, we will be covering the topics. So what is human capital and human development? So what is the difference between human capital and human development? Next, the state of human capital formation in India and education sector in India, as well as some of the future prospects of the Indian economy. So moving forward, let us see what is human capital and human development is all about. So though the words human capital and human development look similar, there is a distinct difference between the human capital and human development. So human capital primarily focuses on, making use of the education and health as a means to increase the labor productivity. Whereas the human development concentrates mostly on the overall well-being of the human beings. Because if the human beings, if they have good health and good knowledge, they can lead their life better, they can earn better and they can contribute and they can increase their productivity. So this basically human capital focuses on education and health as a means to increase labor productivity, whereas human beings are used as a means to an end, that is to increase in output of goods and services. And investment in education and health is valuable because it enhances the productivity of the human beings. So it concentrates more on the productivity of the human beings. But human development focuses on education and health has ends in themselves, whereas human beings ends in themselves. That means they have good well-being and choices valued. Whereas investments in education and health are important even if they don't raise productivity, because if the human beings are healthy, if they are have good education and training, they can perform well. And everyone has the right to basic education and health irrespective of what their productivity level is, and right to literacy and healthy life even as per the Constitution of India. So it is the fundamental right of every person to get educated and to live his life in a healthy way. Now, let us see what is the state of human capital formation in India. So how is the human capital formation in India? So some of the key sources as we discussed includes education, health, on-the-job training, migration and information. Moving forward, so what is the role of government and intervention here? So here when we talk about what the government has played in increasing the human capital is that India has a federal system. That means we have different levels of administration, both at the union government as well as at the state level, as well as we have local governments like municipalities and panchayats. So here at all these three levels, education and health expenditures are carried out by all these three tiers, because intervention of government and their measures on education and health is very important, because services create both private and social benefits. So if the man has good education, it is not only just going to contribute to increase his productivity, rather than it also improves his private life as well as some of the social benefits we have if we are educated. And particularly when we talk about the long-term impact. So it cannot be easily reversed. So lack of consumer information leads to higher risk of exploitation by private providers. So government ensures that standards and fair pricing. Particularly, the government's role in education and health sectors is very important. Otherwise, the people will be exploited by private owners. So it is equally important that government should provide free education as well as the healthcare services at minimum costs. Moving forward, some of the institutions in education sector, when we talk about, both we have union and state ministries of education. So under that there are many institutions under central government as well as state government providing free and compulsory education for the children as well as the students. And we have various departments of education both at the state and the central level. So for example, NCERT, National Council for Education, Research and Training, and UGC we have for graduation, whereas University Grants Commission takes care of the graduation and post-graduation programs, and AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education. So these are the departments of education we have in India. Apart from that, some of the institutions in health sector, when we talk about, we also have both in union and state ministries of health. Then under that, departments of health like NMC and ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research, and National Medical Council takes care of all kinds of medical or health education in India and the rules and regulations to have proper health care in India. Next, we have how is the education sector in India. So there is a growth in government expenditure on education as the government has realized the value of education. So not only that, it is either measured in terms of percent of total government expenditure as well as the percentage of GDP. So as we can look at the, that the statistics we have from 1952 to 2020. So how was it in 1952 and what was it in 2020? So the percentage of government expenditure on education in 1952 was 7.92%, whereas the percentage of government expenditure in 2020 is 16.54%. So almost the expenditure of the government has doubled. And apart from that, the percentage of GDP when we look at, so how was the GDP percentage? The growth rate in 1952 was 0.64%. And the percentage of GDP in 2020 is 4.47. So it has both the GDP of the country, the national income, as well as the government expenditure that is, on education. So here in the percentage of GDP refers to not the overall GDP rather than the contribution of the education system towards the GDP. So there is a rise, has been very irregular over the years, but also it includes both private and philanthropic spending, much higher total expenditure. So moving forward, talking about the allocation of funds. So in elementary education, the India has spending a major share of the revenue when it comes to the allocation of funds that is allocated for education sector. So apart from that, a least share is spent on higher and tertiary education. So per student expenditure is higher in tertiary education and need to increase funds at all levels in the country. And apart from that, there is also state-wise variation that is found based on 2020 and 2021. As we can see, the highest per capita spending is in Sikkim, where they are spending around 96,968, whereas lowest per capita spending is in Bihar, that is only 10,710. So that means there is variation of the per capita spending on state-wise spending in education sector. So this variation should be corrected. Apart from that, what are the government measures that the government have taken in order to give the compulsory education for all the children or all the citizens of India. So in 2009, they introduced Right to Education Act 2009. It says that free and compulsory education should be given to, especially for the kids from 6 to 14 years. This also avoids child labor in the country, and not only that, should be a 2% education cess on union taxes to be paid and funding elementary education. And there is a large outlay for higher education also. Then some of the future prospects includes in 1950, when the Constitution of India was passed by the Constituent Assembly, it was decided that in the directive principles of the Constitution, the government should provide free and compulsory education for all children up to the age of 14 years within 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution. So, still we have to achieve the free and complete education, 100% education for the students in India. And not only that, as per NSSO data in the year 2011 and 12, the rate of unemployment among youth males who studied graduation and above in rural areas was only 19%. So their urban counterparts had relatively less level of unemployment at 16%. The unemployment rate is, higher in rural areas compared to the urban areas graduates. So there is a variation in both the urban areas and rural areas graduated males. Then the situation has improved moderately as indicated by the periodic labor force survey in 2022 to 23. But nevertheless, the government should also increase allocation of the funds for higher education, and not only that, it should improve the standards of higher education institutions so that the students are imparted employable skills in such institution. So it not only improves the overall skills of the students, but also it will help them to gain more and more employment and generate income, which contributes to the overall national income of the country, where the per capita income of the people will also be increased, and in that way it can contribute to the economic growth of the nation as well as the overall development of the country. So this was all regarding the human capital formation. So we have seen what is human capital and human development. So how is the state of human capital formation in India and some of the future prospects? So this was all for this session. Hope you all have understood. Thank you.